What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Everything Vive. Happy Friday, and I hope you all are ready for another episode of Game Talk. I know Ronnie is. How you doing, Ronnie?
I am doing great. Lots to talk about today.
Yes, indeed. It was an exciting week because, well, Serious Sam. I'm just gonna come out and say it. There's no suspense needed. Everybody, this game was super hyped up. I know you had a chance to play it, and I am curious to hear your thoughts, as I'm sure everybody else is.
Sure. So my first impressions are very positive. I got a chance to play Serious Sam, for the first time before recording this, and I thought it does a great job. So I mean, I don't want to sound negative, but I mean this was a very hyped release. So I will say that initially I was a little bit disappointed that it was primarily a wave-based shooter. So I don't know. I mean, maybe I wasn't following it as much as I should have been. But I definitely knew it was a wave-based shooter before I purchased it. But I was hoping for a little bit more than that when I had initially heard that Serious Sam was being worked on for an adaptation into virtual reality. But anyways, I mean, that said, everyone, all of the reviews I saw out there were overwhelmingly positive. So I figured it was definitely worth checking out. And I must say, it is the most polished wave-based shooter on the Vive that I've played so far. So I was impressed with it in that regard.
So when you say polished, can you help define that a little bit more?
Sure. So I guess first off, I think the game performs really well. And when I say that, I mean, despite all of the crazy, hectic, trust me, if you've ever played one of the older Serious Sam games on the PC prior to this virtual reality experience, you'll know kind of what I'm talking about. Serious Sam in general is known to be a franchise that kind of reaches back to the old school shooters like Doom and Quake, and they just like to throw a bunch of enemies at you. These enemies aren't smart. They're not. The game just throws a ton at you, and you just have to be fast and take out everything on the screen. And it's all about that fast, frenetic pace. And as far as polish is concerned, with the performance of this game, I was very pleased with how the game ran. Granted, I have a pretty high-end system. I run a 980 Ti as my GPU, but that said, even on my system, a lot of fairly recent games that have came out on the Vive, like Raw Data, for example, it takes quite a bit of tweaking in order to get the game to feel right, to feel like it's running perfectly smooth and all of that sort of thing. Serious Sam, from the beginning, I thought graphical fidelity was really high, and at the same time, everything felt super smooth, super fast. So that's one thing. The other thing, I thought all the menus are very clean, very easy to understand, very intuitive. I thought the first time I got into the game that the feel of the weapons, just the feel of how you can aim, is just right on exactly where you'd want it to be. In a game like Serious Sam, you want to be able to take on enemies quickly. And I think if they would have made aiming too difficult, they wouldn't have been able to really match that frenetic pace that the older PC games have, because you throw a bunch of enemies at a player that quickly in virtual reality, and if the player can't react quickly enough and actually aim and shoot enemies properly, it's going to be a very frustrating experience. Well, in Serious Sam, I felt like I was able to shoot enemies accurately, while at the same time aiming wasn't too easy or too difficult. It was kind of right in that sweet spot where I felt like I was doing the work to aim, but it didn't feel like the game was punishing me for not taking my time to aim, super in depth. So I don't know if that makes a ton of sense, but I mean, it definitely it feels right. It feels like an arcade shooter brought into virtual reality, which is what I was hoping for. So on that front, I think it is a huge success.
Now, you mentioned, I think, Raw Data a little bit earlier. That was actually my question for you when we were talking about it earlier that I was going to save for the podcast. But how would you compare this to raw data, which I think set an early standard for how, I guess, wave-based shooters go?
So that's an interesting question because in one sense, I think that raw data was quite a bit more ambitious than Serious Sam is in virtual reality, and by that I mean in raw data, there's a lot more. At least from my early experiences, I've only had a chance to play Serious Sam for really just a short period at this point. I checked out a few of the earliest stages, that sort of thing. But in raw data, you get the sense that they really tried to kind of maximize what could be possible in virtual reality, and given current software. So by that I mean they implemented a very clever, intuitive way to teleport around the environment. They spawned enemies all around you. They made everything very atmospheric, so you felt a very strong sense of place. Even the mechanics of holding weapons and being able to use a sword. Those are all things that I think were very well thought out by the developers of raw data to really take advantage of virtual reality and what being in the game could offer players. For Serious Sam, on the other hand, I think it was more, and like I'd love to get a chance to talk to the developers, to talk to Crow Team about their experience with Serious Sam. It seems to me like really at least based on the finished product, or this early access product, I should say, that their main focus was finding a way to bring that arcadey feel of Serious Sam and translate it as accurately as possible to virtual reality. And in doing so, I think they limited themselves in scope quite a bit more. So I think the production quality, like I said, is top notch. So I think they put a lot of resources into making the game feel very solid and well made. But I also think that they didn't spend as much time trying to figure out, well, how can we what's the best way for the player to move around in this environment, or how can we bring the single player experience of Serious Sam in the sense of moving around large environments to virtual reality. They kind of, instead of trying to solve that problem of playing a full first-person shooter game in virtual reality, they instead, at least based on what I've played so far, focused more on the wave-based shooter aspect and decided, okay, well, how can we bring what Serious Sam has to offer to the wave-based shooter that everyone knows and loves in virtual reality. So that's kind of my long-winded answer of, I think raw data provides you with more mobility, more options as far as gameplay is concerned, whereas Serious Sam intentionally so limits what it allows you to do. But I think they do a great job at what they're trying to go for as a result.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It's more so they're really just trying to capture the essence of what makes Serious Sam Serious Sam. And I mean, I haven't had the chance to play this yet, but I watched a lot of gameplay videos. I saw the trailer and just did a little research on it, just because it was, like you said, one of the most hyped games that I've seen for the Vive, or just for virtual reality coming out. So I will make sure to try that out myself. Maybe I'll head over to your place at some point, Ronnie. Or I mean, I should probably just get the game myself, because I'm probably just going to dive into it.
Sure. No, I think especially right now, if you can get it on sale, I think it's definitely worth checking out. Like I said, I mean, it's very polished. It's very well done. You won't feel like you're not getting your money's worth. This is a great virtual reality game.
Awesome. All right. Well, there you go. You have Ronnie's recommendation on Serious Sam. So I actually have another arcade style game. It's called Lazerbait, and I hadn't even heard of it. Like I said, I go through Steam quite regularly just to see what's available, and I usually just all the free stuff, like I download, or anything under $5, I'll usually just download and grab because I'm just curious as to what the experiences are out there. So Lazerbait was one of those games where it just looks super simple. It's free. It's an arcade strategy game set in virtual reality. And the scope of the game is you have one simple goal, just to capture all the planets in the little galaxy or universe to build more ships and destroy your enemies is how they phrase it. And it sounds very simplistic. It probably sounds very confusing the way that I'm explaining it. And there is somewhat of a learning curve to understand how gameplay works. But ultimately, it's a very simple game. It's super addictive. I started playing it yesterday, and I saw maybe about a couple of hours fly by before I took the headset off and was like, hey, what happened? I just got so caught up in the game, and I immediately texted you, Ronnie, earlier today saying like, you got to try this game out. I think it's the simplicity that actually adds to it and makes it as fun as it is. I mean, complex games, great and all, but I think there's just something about this that has that arcadey vibe to it, but you don't have to keep putting in quarters. You just keep playing the game.
So, I mean, as far as like an arcade feel is concerned, like, what would you compare? Is there any other kind of gaming experience that I might have tried that it would be like, or what's the best way to describe how the gameplay works?
So, okay, let me give this a shot. So there's a good amount, depending on you can choose how many enemies you have. You choose their level, the AI intelligence, and then you can choose map size. And so map size really just, it creates this three-dimensional space which is filled with different planets. And so each planet has a certain reach, and you start off with ships on your own planet. And, every member or every enemy that you have starts off in a different corner, and you essentially can send your ships from one planet to the next. And the more planets you quote unquote conquer, the more ships you have in your fleet to command. And it's a very quick and streamlined process. Like you're walking. What I think it actually really adds to it is that you're walking around the environment, and you can move the environment around, and you're actually in the physical space, which is really cool. Excuse me, because you can see, like, if you can actually probably play this game or a version of this game on computer or a console of some type where you just scroll around the area. But to be in the space three-dimensionally, looking up and down, like being able to make those judgments, and then using your hands to actually drag shipping routes from like one planet to another, there's just something that's like really fast, and really the fast-pacedness of it is actually, I think, one of the nicest features or brightest features of the game is that you're making all these decisions, and you literally have to run around the space that you have, or you have to keep moving stuff around because you're constantly fighting enemies. They can take over the planets that you have. Everybody starts out on one planet, but you have, everybody starts off on one planet, but all the other planets in the quote unquote galaxy, whatever you want to call it, are neutral planets, and so you have to go conquer those. And once you conquer them, they become highlighted in your color. And speaking of highlighted in your color, like the graphics are super simple. Like I said, I'm trying to emphasize the fact that it is very much a arcade style game. But again, I think that's what gives it its charm.
Yeah, no, it sounds really cool. Actually, the more you explain what it's like, the more I want to try it out, because it sounds. I always think it's neat. The games that make you feel almost like you're playing a tabletop game or something, where the objects are all very physical in the location, and you're walking around an environment manipulating objects like that, I think is always really fun and satisfying. And it sounds like this, on one hand, is simple, like an arcade game. On the other hand, has kind of a fun strategy kind of element to what it's like playing. It definitely sounds like something that I want to check out.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a strategy element to it, and like I said, I keep saying fast-paced, but that's literally how I find myself every time I'm playing the game. I'm frantically running from one side of the map to the other side of the map, just because you build up these fleets that are so big, and you don't want them sitting idly. And your goal is to conquer all the planets, or capture all the planets. And so, like I said, I think it's super simple in concept and in gameplay, but what adds to it is the fact that it is in virtual reality. And you put on this headset, and you're no longer staring at a screen. You're in a world where you get to actually make decisions or impact gameplay with your physical movements.
And what was the price on that one again?
The price was $3.99. So.
Yeah.
I feel like I keep coming across these like free games or experiences that are worth every penny. Is what I think I texted you earlier. It's so yeah. I mean, check it out. There's no, you guys honestly have nothing to lose. There's and I got in touch with the developer right away because like as soon as I started playing it, I was just trying to find out who developed it because I just wanted to talk to this guy and be like, how did you even come up with this concept? And so he responded, and I think we're going to hopefully have him interviewed on the show very soon. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, okay, so let's move on to another one. You mentioned NVidia VR Funhouse. Sell me on it.
So this is one that I just wanted to mention. A lot of people might already know about it, especially if you're fans of NVIDIA or kind of, were involved in, or if you were paying attention to their announcements of the GTX 10 series. But this is a cool free demo that you can download that really shows what high-level physics can add to the virtual reality experience. There's not a lot of depth in a lot of the games that are provided. It's basically a mini game collection where you're in a funhouse kind of circus environment, and you get to try out all these small mini games. So there's whack-a-mole. There's shoot the clay jars with a small pistol. There's squirt the balloons with liquid. There's all these kind of funny, fun little games. But the thing that's cool about this experience in virtual reality is that everything is very physics based. So the fluids that you're shooting out of the water gun act like real fluids and fill up a container. Or you shoot the porcelain vases and stuff with the pistol, and each shot kind of hits a small nick in the porcelain and it crumbles realistically. There's a couple of other ones, popping balloons and watching confetti explode around you, and all this stuff is just very convincingly real. You feel a real weight to the environment and to the objects that you're interacting with, and everything feels like it's interacting the way that it should. And so I think this is more, especially if you have a high-end graphics card, it's definitely worth checking out. Since it is made by NVIDIA, I'm not sure if you have to have an NVIDIA card or not, due to how the physics or physics works on the cards, but it's definitely check it out to see if it's compatible with your system, and if it is, it's a neat experience, and it's free, like I mentioned before, so there's no downside to downloading it to try checking it out.
Cool. Well, I didn't know anything about this game until you mentioned it, so I'm looking at the first word in that title, NVIDIA. Is there a focus on visual quality or fidelity?
Yeah, and the physics, because NVIDIA really pushes their physics model of physics. I'm trying to think. It's not really software because it's hardware. It's hardware accelerated physics code, but the main thing on this, I think, is the graphics fidelity and the physics applications in VR, and kind of showing off what the 10 series graphics cards can do. So the main menu in the game kind of suggests that you should have a 1070 or a 1080 or even dual 1080s to run the game at its highest settings. But on my 980 Ti, it ran just fine. And like I said, it was just neat seeing how everything interacted so realistically. So I hope more and more games going forward will have more and more realistic physics, because I think that's one of the coolest things in virtual reality, when a game makes you feel like you're really able to interact with the environment. Even less realistic physics in games such as, Job Simulator and others, where you can just kind of toss things around in virtual reality, is a lot of fun. So I think, yeah, anytime there's more interaction in virtual reality, it's best. So
Cool. All right. Well, I will definitely make sure to check that one out. So we got a couple more for you. These, this one is not necessarily a game. It's more of another, just I guess, type of application of. Well, it's not even what VR can do. It's a Soundstage, and Ronnie, I know you're the one that pointed me in the direction of this initially.
Yep.
And so Soundstage is it's a music making application, and it's like having your own virtual studio, which you can build from scratch, and you have all the physical space, or you have all the space of your physical play space to set up instrumentation, drums, drum machines, synthesizers, keyboards, pianos, sound samplers. Like it's actually very, very in depth. And I come from a music background. I produce music myself. I use high end gear like Pro Tools and Logic. And while this is not there, it is incredibly comprehensive in terms of what it can do, and just how much is available to people in terms of working with synthesizers, being able to manipulate the sounds, wavelengths, the frequencies. I was actually just shocked diving in at how much I could customize and create. And it's one of those games, or again, not games. Like I want to find a way to utilize this where. Maybe even make some songs through it, because I think that'd be a cool way to combine two different passions of mine now, music and virtual reality. And so,
I'd be curious just to see what you could come up with. Like, I mean, even if, like you said, I mean, it's not quite as comprehensive as some of the other tools you use currently, just to see what you're able to create and kind of what some of the pros and cons would be. I thought it was just amazing that someone could develop a tool like this that was able to bring all of that together. I mean, it's one thing to have individual pieces of hardware that helps you create the music that you do, but having a single piece of software that someone developed work both in virtual reality and have all of that kind of functionality, I think is pretty amazing.
No, it really is. And I think, again, going back to it being in virtual reality, I think that is really part of its charm, in the sense that you can create, you don't have to carry things around. You don't need all this equipment. Like, you literally press a button and all the options for whatever equipment you want to use come up, and you select one, and then you place it in your virtual space. So you're creating your studio as you go. You have as much space around you as you can fit, high, low, and around you. So it's, I mean, no other way to describe it except for the fact that, like, if you're into music or producing music, even on a novice or hobbyist level, like it's a lot of fun. And I think you can get lost for hours in there, similarly to how people can get lost in the studio writing music. You can get lost for hours in there just messing with and tweaking all the different things that they have.
That's amazing.
So yeah, hopefully more to come from that soon. I think once I have a little bit more time, maybe I'll create a little jingle for the podcast.
That's actually a really good idea.
All right, I'll get on it. All right, we got one more. Again, not a game, but more of an experience. Irrational Exuberance. Hit it, Ronnie.
Okay, so yeah, this one, I mean, there's not a whole lot to say because I don't want to give away the experience. It's short, but again, it's one of those free experiences. And this is one that I was very impressed with when I first got my Vive. And this is also one that when I've showed people this short experience, they've also been very, very impressed. Let's just say it's more of an artistic type of game. There are definitely interactions for sure, but it's more the sense of place and kind of the mood that's created by the demo that's really the most impactful. And yeah, I don't want to get into too many spoilers, other than to say that it's very stylized, but very, very, very cool, and it leaves a strong, lasting impression.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually had the chance to try it out as well. It's just visually stunning, and I think it's one of those nice introductions to VR, or just being able to walk around in a virtual space type of thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So it's definitely worth checking out.
Yep. And again, another free experience. We're just gonna keep throwing those out there. You got any games or game that you're looking forward to, or maybe it's just Serious Sam you want to dive further into?
Yeah, no, I want to get a chance to play Serious Sam some more. So I'm excited to see what the other game modes are, and kind of just in general see what there is to the early access stages of the game so far. So
cool. I downloaded a game called Capital Ship VR yesterday, and I'm looking forward to playing it. Honestly, what happened is I downloaded the game, and while I was waiting for it to download, I threw in Lazerbait, and then I never looked back. So I was so excited about this game, Capital Ship VR, because apparently it's very similar to Homeworld for anyone who ever played that. And I played the original, was a big fan of the original. And so once I saw that there's a game out there that even somewhat had the same vibe, but in virtual reality, I was like, sign me up. So I will be hopefully getting into that this week, and we'll be able to provide some feedback by our next game talk next week.
Very, very cool. No, that sounds awesome.
All right. Well, I think that covers it for now. Yeah, if you guys have any games that you'd like to recommend to us, we are always happy to try stuff out. Or if anything that you guys, any feedback, or if you feel differently about the games, or whatever it is, make sure to hit us up. We are on iTunes and Stitcher. Definitely subscribe and follow us there. Leave us a review. We would really, really appreciate it, and we'll do a happy dance once we see one. I don't know how we'll be able to translate that on podcast, but just trust that we will do a little happy dance. And yeah, we'll have some new stuff on YouTube as well, because I know I've been working on some gameplay videos to just demo the stuff that we've been talking about. So, yep. Have a great weekend, and we will be in touch with you early next week for some more virtual reality news and Vive news, because there's always so much happening. So have a good one. Ronnie, you want any last thoughts?
No, not really. Just, one of these days I'm going to start uploading my own videos as well. I had some technical issues with getting things recorded on my system, but hopefully Zane and I will get those ironed out. So I want to put up a video about Serious Sam, read out a couple of other games that I've been playing recently. So hopefully I will get that working soon.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure you get that working. So, all right, guys. Well, have a fantastic weekend, and we will talk to you very, very soon. Take care.